Welcome, welcome. This is Marnie Swedberg. I'm excited to be here with you today with our guest, Carol Kent. We're going to be talking about how to grow and develop your ministry in the next few minutes. You are going to discover the benefits of attending conferences for writers, speakers, and creatives, why you need to join a mastermind or intensive coaching group, why you should embrace creative restlessness as a good thing, how God opens doors for us, why you must develop a team and the most important people to include, and also how to mentally frame seasons of intensity. Our guest today is Carol Kent. She's one of my heroes. She is an author, speaker, and ministry leader whose passion is to equip speakers and writers and encourage inmates and empower leaders. Her website is carolkent.org. And also you can totally come and see Carol and meet Carol and I at the Well, the conference for creative. That's going to be seeyouatthewell.net. That's coming up in April, and I'm excited right now to welcome you, Carol.
Thank you. Hey, Marnie. So great to be on the air with you today.
Yeah, it's fun to have you here. And I was telling you before we came live, there's very few women who model what I do, and you really do. So I thank you for that.
The feeling is totally mutual, and I am thanking God for giving you so many abilities that encourage people to communicate effectively for God's glory. So we are on the same team, sister, and we love the subjects we're going to be dealing with today.
Yeah, that's so great. And we really want to encourage you guys. Both of us have very unique stories. And of course, Carol, your story includes a huge tragedy that has really formed a lot of your pathway through the years. Mine, of course, includes a lot of tiny tragedies, including fires and floods and tornadoes and ambulance rides and death in the family and all that kind of stuff. But God uses these things. And our goal for you guys today is to encourage you to step out. If God's called you to something, go ahead and let him grow your ministry. Be brave. So as we get going here, Carol, let's talk first about, we are both believers in attending events, conferences, workshops, all these kind of things that can help you grow. And why do you feel like they're so important?
Well, Marnie, I am so excited about encouraging people to attend writers and speakers conferences, creative conferences, because that's where you network with other people who share your vision and passion for what God has called you to do. On top of that, you get keynote sessions, you get workshops that are going to help you hone your skills. And all of us are better at some things than other things. And so you can take a breakout workshop that helps you to get stronger in an area of social media where you might not really have all of the skills put together yet. You might have a fabulous book idea, a wonderful topic or theme for a speaking engagement, but you may have that social media link missing. And when you are at conferences like this, you can say, wow, there's a session I could really benefit from that would further ministry in a profound way. But Marnie, my favorite thing about attending creative, wonderful speaker and writer conferences is that I continue to make friends that have lasted a lifetime, my peers in ministry who I can continue to connect with on an ongoing basis. And that's iron sharpening iron. And that spurs me on to do greater work for God.
I think one thing too, it's kind of different for us as speakers and authors because a lot of our work is literally done by ourselves in front of a computer.
Yes, it is lonely.
It can be. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's
when we connect like that, it is something that spurs us on because there are people who look at us when we're creative as if, what kind of an off the wall idea is that? And when you get with other people who share that vision and creativity, so much comes out of that.
I remember the first time a co-speaker called me. She was from a city near me, and she called and she said, can we have lunch? And at lunch, she said, I really just wanted to share this praise report with somebody, but no one else would be able to understand what I'm saying. And no one else would think I was sharing it and not being proud. She said, I'm just so excited about what God did at this last event. And she went on to tell me, and there's just nobody that can understand us like somebody else who's doing the same thing as we're doing.
It's so true. And I
Yeah.
love the fact that when we aren't in competition with someone else,
Yes.
that we become friends who cheerlead for one another,
Yes.
for books that come out, for speaking
Mhm.
engagements we get. We can recommend each other.
Yeah.
And that's how ministry multiplies. And instead
Exactly.
of hoarding our little opportunities and keeping them close to our chest, we
Right.
recommend people we know who would do a
Right.
great job. And then they in turn do that for us. And it becomes a wonderful part of furthering God's kingdom work.
Absolutely. And God loves body life. I always say that God loves body life.
So
Okay. And
true.
there's a different angle too for growing your ministry. There's, of course, the conferences, which are a big in person gathering of many people or even hundreds of people of like mind. But then there's also the concept of, like, I have a mentorship program. You guys over at Speak Up, you guys have masterminds, intensive coaching groups. So, why do you feel like those are so important?
Well, one thing that happened is when we were doing the Speak Up conference, that was always a big annual event. And people at the end of that would say, well, where do we go from here? What do
Yeah.
I do next? And so it was really born out of an urgent need. And so about a year and a half ago, for the first time, we launched peer-to-peer mastermind groups where like-minded people who are emerging as Christian writers and speakers can connect on a monthly basis and share each other's questions and do some problem solving. We have some curriculums so that they have a guideline to follow. And then we also offered intensive coaching groups for people who are already involved in writing and speaking on a pretty regular basis. And this is a calling they are following and they are doing right now. And we found those to be the most popular because we
Mm.
have a session called office hours where we share Q&A with each other once a month.
Yeah.
And then we have a text thread. So if somebody says, hey, pray for me right now. We had somebody say this week, wow, I have a kidney stone and I'm supposed to be on the platform in 30 minutes. Pray for me
Yeah.
now. So in addition to honing our
Yeah.
skills, we have become a network of praying friends in
Love it.
ministry who support each other. And that has been unexpected, surprising, and such
Yeah.
a benefit of sharing at that mastermind or intensive coaching group.
Yeah.
Just that whole area of connecting with a smaller group of people online regularly.
I love that. And I think one of the things that we're modeling right here for you guys is two women that have what we would probably have to call, would we say, a competing thing in a way, except that it's not.
It is.
In God's economy, it's a collaboration, right? We're
It
both working
is.
toward the same thing. And as we have the heart to trust that God is big enough, and you know what I say to speakers, there's over 250,000 evangelical churches in America. There's plenty of speaking opportunities.
So
We don't
many.
have to compete, you know.
And I love the fact that God uses different personalities in different ways
Yes.
to communicate
Yes.
his truth. And we all have different networks. It might be through our
Yeah.
own denomination or through organizations we've been a part of. And so, even though we may have similar ministries, we have this wide range of an ability to reach into different ministries in order to communicate what we want to give out to those who share God's
Right.
truth on a regular basis. So it is indeed a collaboration, not a competition.
Right. And you guys, this is so key. One of the things I see at womenspeakers.com are the speakers who are the most collaborative minded are the speakers who get the most bookings through womenspeakers.com.
Yes,
So
they
not
do.
only are they getting the most bookings, but they're actually promoting other speakers.
I
And
love
it's
that.
it's like it's counterintuitive, but it's God's way. It's God's way,
It
and
is.
it's such a
It is.
beautiful way.
Well,
You
and
know,
there's
go ahead.
extravagance with the way when
There
we give
is.
to others, when we open
Yes.
doors for others,
Yeah.
more doors open for us. And I have seen that repeatedly throughout
Mhm.
my lifetime as a
Yeah.
Christian public speaker and author. The more I open doors for others, the more God multiplies and expands my tent pegs, as the prayer of Jabez says.
You know, you think about the blessings of God, and they're just endless. They're boundless, the extravagance of a sunset and of a little flower that has so many pieces. And that's how big he is. You actually, you were telling me the story of how you got your first book deal and what God did with that. And I really want you to share it here, because I think it will inspire some of you who are kind of newer, getting going, and you think, oh, I just don't know if this will ever, be anything, whatever.
Well, Marnie, God surprised me. I had been a Bible study fellowship teaching leader. And when I left that to do national retreat and conference speaking, there were a whole lot of people in my class who had a story to tell, or they loved the Bible, but they just didn't know how to do an outline and put everything together. And so I started a small speakers group in my home that grew to a church-wide group, a class that I taught. And then I did it out of state once. And I wound up being with someone who was used to setting up national conferences and traveling opportunities. And so Speak Up went on the road at that point. And when I began, it was just a speakers conference. And I was doing it at a Bible conference center in Muskegon, Michigan, Maranatha. And at the end of the 3 days, this young woman came up to me and she said, Carol, I work for a man called Michael Hyatt. And she said, I believe that this conference has book potential. Do you mind if I talk to him about what you're doing? And I said, sure. He called me 3 days later, asked if I would send a book proposal. I said, well, I don't even know what a book proposal looks like, but I taught English. Give me a format, a template, and I'll try it. I sent it in, and he said, I am one of 4 people on the decision-making team at Thomas Nelson Publishers, and I think we need this book. Speak Up with Confidence, it was called. And we thought it would be a small niche book. It has wound up as my first publication being a book that has been owned by 2 different publishing houses. It's had 5 different covers. It's even used as a textbook in some Bible colleges for women's ministry. And I have been blown away how God used that little open door in a step of obedience to use that book to touch lives everywhere. And I never dreamed that Speak Up would also one day have a writing track with publishers and editors and acquisition people coming. And so now at this point, we have seen many books published through people who attend the conference. And the longevity of that book blows me away. It's one of those only God kinds of stories, because I didn't have an uncle in the publishing business. God just opened the door where there was no door.
I love that story for a couple of reasons. First of all, you didn't even know it was supposed to be a book.
I did not.
You were just doing what God had called you to do,
True.
which was to do the thing at the moment. And then God just did the next step there.
Well, I think that many times we forget that often in ministry, we don't see the big picture early on, but we keep walking through the next open door. And sometimes it's an opportunity to share with a group of young moms in a church. Sometimes it's to speak at a local retreat. And then God surprises us with a national opportunity to speak for a mega church.
So
it grows slowly as we keep saying yes to the next open door.
Yeah, I love that. And then it was one of the first books I read. So when my first book came out in 1996, it was a secular cookbook, actually, a kitchen how-to book. Yeah, but I started getting speaking engagements, and I thought, I got to figure out how to do this. And I found your book, and it was one of my first tutorials. It was my manual that I went to. So thank you for writing it, and thank you for just following Jesus in that way. One of the things that you talk about is a team, and you emphasize including our families in our team, starting of course with you and God, and then you and your spouse and your children. Who else do we need on our team?
Well, I believe we need a prayer team. And I had a woman come to me and she said, Carol, God has called me to pray for your ministry. I see women coming to faith in Christ. I see women growing in their knowledge of the Bible under your teaching. And would you allow me to start your prayer team? And she said, I want you to give me a list of a few people who are true prayers. She said, I don't want a list of everybody on your email. She said, I want it to be people who really seriously will pray. And that began something so important for me. They prayed for me during my preparation time, whether I was writing a book or speaking. They prayed for me during the event. And then, of course, I was responsible to share what the results were. And so it became a group of close-knit friends. And so I think a prayer team is essential. And then I tell speakers and writers to make a list of your strengths, but then make a list of your weaknesses. What are you bad at? If you're bad at social media, one of the first people you need to hire is a part-time social media coordinator who can help you look good on the screen and on paper so that what you do represents the excellence that is worthy of his name. And if you are not good at editing, but you write well, you need somebody with great grammar skills. And don't be afraid to spend a little money to hire someone for a few hours a week to do what you are not excellent in. And that has been an important thing I have tried to do for my entire ministry life. And it has helped me so much to give up trying to do everything, because none of us can do that.
Yeah, no, I love that too. And one of the things that we say is as you start growing, one of the things you want to do is you want to delegate everything that anybody else could do and retain only the things that only you can do. And so, for example, when you go speak on a platform, you can't delegate that. But when you got emails to answer about, technical issues or whatever, you can delegate some of those things. So the sooner you start toward that, the better. And just to begin that. There are seasons of intensity with speaking, with writing. There are deadlines, there are book launches, there are times that are really intense and times that aren't quite so intense. When you're in the middle of an intense time, what are you saying to yourself? How are you managing that?
Well, I am blessed to have a husband who is a coworker. I mean, we work together. I'm the upfront person. I'm the person who's doing the speaking, and my name is on most of the books. But at the same time, you need that person who's planning the travel schedule, ordering the books, shipping the books, managing the table, working with volunteers, working with the meeting planner. And my husband, Gene, does all of that behind the scenes work. Now, all of you don't have a husband like mine who has quit his day job to go full-time in ministry with you. So you may have a friend who does that for you. And it helps so much if you involve your family as much as possible. Allow them to go with you to a speaking engagement and see people come to Christ. Let them observe you as you're listening to someone pour out their heart, and then pray with them. I remember when my son was young and I was teaching a local Bible study. Those were the days of overhead projectors. Remember that long ago, Marnie? And I would have my young son draw visuals of whatever Bible character I was speaking on, and I would use them in my class. And I still remember the man on the mat with the 4 friends who took him to Jesus. And that's a treasure to me, that beautiful picture my young son wrote. And he knew he was a part of the ministry. So involve the people closest to you so that you're not growing far in one area and the family saying, hey, mom's never home, or a husband feeling like, I don't even know what she's doing anymore. But as much as is possible, involve people who can help you, and especially those closest to you, and they will experience the joy that comes when God does the extraordinary.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And one of the things I always like to say about seasons of intensity is that just like when you are a mom and you're pregnant and then you have delivery, labor and delivery and new baby, that's pretty intense, right?
Oh, yes.
And if somebody came along during the first few weeks and says, you're really not getting enough sleep, you really need to get more sleep, you would just say, not just now, but maybe soon, hoping soon. Same way with intense seasons in ministry. There are times when you're supposed to actually be working very hard. And maybe to other people, it might seem too hard, but it's just part of the process. The challenge and the problem comes when you're working that hard all the time.
Yes.
There needs to be seasons of rest. And if you are turning into someone who's just always pushing with no seasons of rest, something's wrong there. Check in with Jesus and have him just ask him. I remember one time I asked my husband, I had gone away for 4 hours and to just be quiet. And I came back and he said, so what did God show you? You could take off your plate. And I said, I think I can change the rugs in the back hall because they're dark and they show all the stuff. And he said, really, that's all? And I said, I don't really see anything else I can take off my plate. And he said, we have to hire an assistant.
And one thing I needed to do was to hire somebody to clean my house, because it was taking so much of my energy and my time. And when I was able to minister more, that would pay for someone to clean my house. And that was a very important decision at that point. But because I grew up in a preacher's kid home with six of us, 5 siblings, it felt like such an extravagance, because we never would have thought of doing that. But that was an important person to hire. But oh, Marnie, I love what you said about there are seasons of intensity, like book deadlines, when other people are making the meals while you're on that deadline. And or you can just plan ahead for a lot of frozen dinners and takeout, but then plan the celebration afterwards with your family, where you will do a day trip or a half day trip and just rejoice in the fact that it's time to rest now. It's time to have fun.
Yeah. Carol, thank you for being here, but mostly thank you for your life of modeling what it looks like to really just be fully dedicated to Christ and to do whatever he calls you to do.
So much, Marnie. It's been a privilege.
Oh, well, thanks you guys for being here. I want to make sure that you know how to get a hold of Carol. Her website is carolkent.org. And of course, you can learn more about the Speak Up conference there. That's coming in July. And then also you can meet Carol and I at the Well. We will be at the Well conference in April in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And so if you haven't registered for that yet, we encourage you to do that right now. And we'd love to see you at the Well. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye for now.